let's talk about what array is. So you might connect it to, let's say something everyday that you might use is a flashlight. So where does the light begin? Light begins from the bulb in the flashlight. And let's take a look. So you've got the end of the flashlight here, and then you've got rays of light coming out. Now this light at the end, there we go here, it stopped at my hand, but if you let it go on and on until it didn't hit anything anymore, this light would go on forever and ever in this direction, in whatever direction you're pointing it. You can point it this way, there we go, or we could point it this way, oops, point it this way, and it goes on and on in this direction. But notice that it starts somewhere, and then it goes on and on forever. Go this way here. It starts here. So this is what we're going to call an endpoint of array. And then we're going to talk about the direction that it goes in. So let's take a look. So you've probably learned about, here's point A here, and point B. Let's put that here. And let's take, this is a piece of uncooked spaghetti, and let's put that right on top of points A and B. And we're going to talk about, we're going to connect this to a line for a minute. So if I put an arrow here, there we go, and let's say an arrow here, like that. So let's tilt it a little better. You've got a line, it's going diagonal on your paper, and a line has to go through 2 points. It needs 2 points to define which way it's going, which, let's say, you know, tilting it that way or tilting it this way. So there's the 2 points. Now when you talk about array, let's say we're going to break off this end of the spaghetti. And I'm going to get rid of the arrow at that end. So what's the difference here? You have a point where it starts, and then the other point shows its direction. It's going this way, forever and ever, infinitely in this direction. So even though the spaghetti piece has a length, but we're going to pretend it goes on and on and on with this arrow. So A becomes an endpoint, not just a point on the long line forever and ever, but it stops here. It's an endpoint. Actually, you could say it begins here. And this point, B, gives it the direction. I want it to go from A through point B, on and on forever. Let's keep point A for a minute. Get rid of B. And let's say I want to put point D here. Let's make that a little darker. Well, let's say A is the end point, and D is the point that's going to give it direction. So B before was here. Now D is here. And we would draw an arrow to show that it goes on and on forever. So let's take a look here. And that's what the ray would look like. When you're drawing it on your paper or you see it in a textbook, it's drawn like that. Okay, and you can have another ray come out. We could put B back in the picture here. It's not the straightest line, but there's your ray there. Okay, now it has no length. You can't measure a ray because it's got one point here, but it's going to go on and on in this direction forever. And you can have, you know, many points on it, like that. but it's actually made up of many, many points very close together here. But you can't measure it. It's just going to keep going. Now we need a way to name. We need a way to name this. So each point gets a name, but how do we name the ray? So let's start with more fun. Let's start with Q. Here's your point Q, and here's point R. We're going to go through it like that with an arrow. So how do we name it? If you're going to write this down on your paper, so we would say ray QR. Why are we starting with Q? There's the endpoint, and there's the point it's going through. So ray QR. We'd also write it as QR with a little segment on top with the arrow pointing that it goes on in that direction forever and ever. Well, what about RQ? Let's flip it for a minute. So what if R was where we started? We went this way. Still a ray. Here's the endpoint, and here's Q. But now how are we going to name it? RQ. This way. So it's saying, here's where we start. It's going to go through Q, and it doesn't finish. It goes on and on forever. You can draw it all the way out, all the way that way, in one direction. And it doesn't curve. It's like a straight line with an endpoint. And here's R, and then Q. So there's your ray.